This is a Voyescape podcast. You can find all of our travel podcasts from around the world at voyescape.com.
A South Pacific paradise with 333 islands to choose from. This week, we're going to talk about Fiji. David, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great. I'm gearing up right now for, I'm heading out on a European trip here tomorrow morning. Getting packed up and ready to go on that. But Fiji is somewhere that I spent my 40th birthday in Fiji. I did one of my first post-pandemic trips, was getting on a plane and getting to Fiji as quick as we could. I was there in my 20s as well. It is a pretty stunning location, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. I love the people. I love the scenery. I love a lot about Fiji.
Yeah, me too. I've been I think 3 times to Fiji, and I'm not sure. I mean, yes, there's every over the top adjective you could use applies, when it comes to a beach destination, applies to Fiji. I mean, beautiful silky white sand beaches and the palm trees and the aquamarine water, all of that. Like, I mean, you get up in the morning and you walk out of your little bure, these little villas that they have there, and you just almost can't believe your eyes. But I think that the thing, and you touched on it just now, that might be even the most special is the people. I've been, well over 100 countries, and what I've learned is that the difference between a country where you feel really warm and welcomed and a country where maybe you don't as much, it's a whole different experience. And in Fiji, the people, they're happy you're there, and they're happy to talk to you. Yeah, just some of the kindest, most welcoming people in the world. So I love Fiji as well. So I think our episode this week maybe gonna be maybe just a tiny bit different than our standard structure, right? We normally talk about restaurant and activities, and we probably have some activities, maybe not as many restaurants, but I know a lot of uh the activities, things you're going to do in Fiji are based on where you stay, right? So maybe that's a good place to start. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the places that you love to stay in Fiji?
Yeah, for sure. And I think you're right that for a lot of people well, first of all, I would say a lot of people, I think Fiji doesn't even register on their radar. A lot of families from North America who maybe they go to Hawaii every couple of years, or they go down to Mexico, or they go down to the Caribbean. They don't necessarily even think of Fiji in that same way. They think of it as being too far or inaccessible, where really it's a direct flight out of LA. It's not that dramatically far. You can find really good rates sometimes to get there. And, I know some of the South Pacific Islands, for sure, it can be more costly. But in Fiji, you can still find a lot of quite accessible places to stay and some beautiful resorts. And I think you're going to, pretty much everyone is going to fly. You fly into the capital, or into Nadi, not the capital, but that's where the main international airport is. And there's a few resorts around there, and a couple that I've stayed at that I quite like. But that's not really what you go to Fiji for, I would say, is like, you get in there, you fly into Nadi, and you probably are going to want, 3-4 days to acclimatize and adjust when you first fly in, and a few great resorts around there to do that. But then really it's getting out to one of those 333 islands throughout the various island chains. A lot of them only have a single resort on them. Some family owned, some big international resorts. I'll throw out a couple. I mean, for those, a great locally owned resort that we really enjoyed was a place called Malolo Island. A few things we liked about this. It wasn't too far of a boat ride from that main international airport area around Nadi. It was about a 2.5 hour, I think, maybe even less, maybe even an hour and a half, ferry ride to get out there. Family owned resort. It's got tremendous snorkeling right off the beach. It's got a great kids club, really good food as well. They had, when we were staying there, the head chef actually was from Canada, and I believe or maybe it was his wife was from Canada and he was from Europe. But excellent food there at Malolo Island. Really good kids club for kids, and it's just like a smaller, more family run resort, which was really fun as well.
Yeah.
If you're looking for much more on like the uber luxury end, there was just a short boat ride away from this, an island called Vomo, VOMO.
Yeah.
Very upscale boutique. Like, I don't know if you've had a chance to make it there, Tim. It's one that I've tried to get them to invite me on fam trips many times, unsuccessfully so far. Hopefully they will hear this and decide they want to bring me across. But Vomo, just sailing by it, looked pretty stunning. And then for that, when you first fly in experience, we stayed at both the Sheraton Fiji Resort and the Fiji Marriott Resort Momi Bay. Both great properties. I would recommend them both. Um, Kind of different appeals to both. The Sheraton Fiji Resort, you're more in sort of a golfing area. It's got some shops and stuff around it, so there's more kind of around there. Versus Momi Bay is a little bit off on its own, but Momi Bay has stunning lagoons over the ocean, like probably some of the only over the water bungalows in Fiji. It's got some great snorkeling, just a short boat ride away. It is definitely a little bit more out on its own. Like, we got a rental car when we were there to go explore around the island because it was a bit more isolated, but it would probably be my preference of the two, and the one that I would recommend as you first fly in. How about you? Where have been your spots to stay in Fiji?
Well, I do love Vomo. I mean, Vomo, I did stay there, and it was really, really a wonderful. I mean, the rooms were wonderful, the berets were wonderful, the pool was wonderful, the service was wonderful. So you're absolutely right on Vomo. I'll say I'm gonna. I think I have three here I wanted to talk about. Um, for that fly-in experience that we're talking about, when you fly into Nandi and then there's this little island called Denarau, which is really part of the main island, Viti Levu, which in Fiji they refer to as the mainland, even though it's just the largest island. But and that is definitely there's a resort there, Radisson Blue, that if you're looking to just kind of get on the time zone and work out the jet lag before you get your island adventures on your other island adventures going. It is really a good choice. It's a lovely resort, good food and drink, beautiful pool right on the ocean, and it is more of that larger resort experience, but they do it very well. One of the unique places I stayed on my last trip there was on Vanuatu, which is the second largest island. And it was a resort called Jean Michel Cousteau. And so the namesake of the resort is the son of Jacques Cousteau. We've all heard of Jacques Cousteau, the great marine biologist. And it was incredible because the focus there is on the marine environment as you would expect. And there's a marine reserve that's close by, and they do regular trips there. We did a trip there when I went, and they take you down, and they have literally 6 stories of coral that you swim amongst. You can dive if you've got your dive license, or you can get your dive license qualified, or you can snorkel if you don't have your dive license. And all the guides, I believe, are certified marine biologists, and they take you out, and they've got these sort of underwater waterproof whiteboards, and they will write down, oh, that's a reef shark, or this is a barracuda, or even just smaller, little details about the coral. So that was pretty spectacular. One quick final place to talk about it was in the Yasawas. The Yasawas are like a chain of islands just off of the mainland. And some of those resorts, some of those single island resorts are so beautiful. And there was one that I stayed at called Yasawa Island Resort, and they did something that I've never seen before. I mean, all the places I've stayed all around the world, they would actually put you in a speedboat, and take you out to a private beach and drop you, and there's no cell reception, there's no Wi-Fi, so you had to make an appointment to get picked up. So if you said 2 p.m., they come back at 2 p.m., and mostly the people taking advantage just and they would send you with a picnic. If you wanted wine or whatever, they would send that with you. and you could just spread out, use a beach umbrella, picnic, and just sit and sip a little wine, eat your lunch. In my case, most people who go to this resort, are couples, maybe they're honeymoon couples or they're celebrating an anniversary or whatever. And so, this is like a couple type of trip. I was there on my own. I was there as a travel writer, writing about the resort. And so they actually sent me out with a guy, this staff member. And, it was just such a cool experience because again, Fiji, um, the people are so warm and welcoming and wonderful. And we just sat on this blanket and we ate at the picnic and he had some of the picnic and it was great. But he talked about growing up on that island and not seeing any Westerners or outsiders until he was like a teenager. And, then the tourism started to develop and that changed. But just hearing about, the Fiji of the past, and this guy was maybe my age. I mean, he wasn't, this 95 years old or whatever, like this is recent history. And to hear about the island before tourism, and of course they were thankful for the resort, happy for tourism because it provides income and jobs to people. But I don't know, that's something that I think I'll never forget.
Well, I was gonna say, I'm so glad you mentioned the Yasawas, because I think the Yasawas, that gets to like one of the core reasons to visit Fiji. We had an opportunity several years ago to go on a cruise throughout the Yasawa Islands, a 5-day cruise visiting various different islands each day. And that was a phenomenal experience where each day, you would go to a different snorkeling spot out in the ocean. You would go visit a different island. And a lot of these islands, it's still subsistence agriculture. It's still like it is like stepping back in time. You're going to these islands where there are no Western chains. It is a village on an island. The captain of the boat would still have to go out every time we went to the island and get permission from the chief for us to come on island. That happened. Then you would go and spend some time interacting with the locals there, visiting some of the local schools. It was an incredible experience. This is the sort of thing you're not going to get in other beach destinations around the world. There is just so much happening from a cultural perspective here. And even staying around Nandi and on the main island, you can do a lot of that as well. I mean, we went up to the Nasuri Highlands, where again, you've got like these remote villages up in the mountains, some great hiking opportunities. We did one trip with Airbnb experiences where, we went into a village where they built out a raft out of bamboo. They took us in for a local kava ceremony. We met everybody in the village, then spent the day on a bamboo raft going up to a waterfall that everybody had, just built earlier that day in the village. These are experiences that you're not going to find a lot of other places in the world, right? It is really like stepping back. And I often describe it to people as what I imagine what it would have been like arriving in Hawaii 80 years ago, 100 years ago, right? That there is still a lot of the local indigenous population living a subsistence agriculture, fishing lifestyle, and some of the friendliest, happiest people you will find anywhere in the world as well.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. One of the cool things that I did when I was on Vanuatu, and you were talking about hiking, getting in the backcountry and all that kind of stuff, was I went river tubing, which I just thought was, it was simple and super fun, getting out there with inner tubes and just going down the river. And I think one of the funnest parts of that was that when we drove through the village to get to the river, all the local kids, they recognized the truck or whatever that we were in, and you could hear kids go river tubing, river tubing. We were like, oh, I guess they're really excited for us to go river tubing. I don't know what's going on. But then when we got to the end of the river tubing, all the kids jumped in the water, and the deal they had was that we would go and just, they had this like kind of hot spring shower thing or whatever. The kids would get the tubes for like 10 minutes. So they were like playing on the tubes. And then the guys organizing the trip actually had like little mini inner tubes built for the kids. And they brought those out at the end. The kids were jumping off the bridge and in their little mini inner tubes. And it was, they only got like 10 or 15 minutes with the inner tubes, but you could tell it was the highlight of the week. So that kind of mixture of, the fun and the relaxation of going down the river on the inner tube, and then, seeing these kids just completely have, freak out and have a wonderful time with the inner tubes at the end, I thought was pretty special. So, yeah.
And it's something that, I think there is so many people who go to a place like this, they get to that beautiful 5-star resort with the golf course and the white sand beach and the great pools, and that's maybe all they hang out at for their 7 days. They're happy to relax and chill out and get back on the plane and head back home. And I would just encourage anybody, if you do go to Fiji, take at least a day, an afternoon, get out to one of those local villages. It is an unforgettable experience. And we went when our kids were various different ages, and just have that experience to visit a local school and be so warmly welcomed when you were there, and see a lifestyle that's so different from what they experienced at home. It's something, I think our son, the first time we went, was maybe 3 years old, 4 years old. And it's like one of his first core memories is that trip to Fiji. He still remembers visiting those schools. He still remembers the kids who he encountered there. It is really a pretty unique experience. In terms of what to do, I know we've talked a little bit about some different activities and places. I've got 2 or 3 others, but any other sort of activities that jump out for you that you would recommend people check out while they're in Fiji, if they do decide to get off the resort and explore a bit more?
Well, there's really a lot. I think the last one, I guess my sort of can't miss, is definitely something we've discussed already, but to go to one of the smaller islands, I mean, and I went to an island, I believe it's called Taveuni, which I think is the third largest island. And again, a thing that I'll never forget is that um, getting picked up at the little airport, uh, this super friendly, huge rugby player guy picked me up and drove me to the resort. And on the way, there was a wedding celebration taking place, and people were dancing and having fun, and music was playing. And in my memory, whether this is true or not, but in my memory, 2, 3 days later, when they drove me back to the airport, that wedding celebration was still happening. It was still 3 days later. They were still dancing and enjoying themselves and seeing this kind of local joy taking place. Maybe you probably would get it on the mainland too, but you're really going to get it when you go out to one of these smaller islands. So, definitely that's one of my recommendations to get out there to a smaller island. What about you? Any can't misses?
I'm gonna throw out 2 last can't misses. One is, there's actually 2 of these. One called Cloud9 and another called Seventh Heaven. These like floating bars that have been built out in the middle of the South Pacific. Crystal clear waters, perfect snorkeling around them. They've got great restaurants and great place to go out for drinks for the day. Both great day trips. I would highly recommend. We did the Seventh Heaven one, which I understand is a little bit more family focused, versus Cloud9, I think, is a bit more backpacker party boat experience. But both of them, like, you're going to see these ton on Instagram. These are out these bars out in the middle of the ocean. Very cool, and definitely worth doing as a day trip. And then the other is Sabato hot springs and mud pools. That here you've got these mud baths you can go in and immerse yourself in, and then go transition from that into natural hot springs. It's a traditional Fijian way to relax and unwind. Is a pretty basic, like it's not like a well developed hot springs resort. This is kind of out in the middle of the mountains with farms all around it. It's quite a popular spot with locals, definitely a popular spot with tourists as well, but a bit undiscovered, very inexpensive, and a good way to spend a day as well. So that would be another can't miss in my books for sure.
Absolutely. I think that's the charm, right, of Fiji is it's the whole high low, right? You can go high end. There's lots of high end. I mean, mostly it's an expensive destination, but there are opportunities to stay local and eat local and meet locals and that kind of thing. And I think that's the beauty of it. And of course, the locals, as we've already said many times, are some of the coolest people you're ever going to meet. So love this destination.
And one last thing I should mention, I talked about there being direct flights for North Americans at least, direct flights out of Los Angeles. Of course, for Australians, there's direct flights out of Sydney. It's an easily accessible route from there, and other routing depending where you're coming from the world. But also, I forgot to mention that there is a direct flight now out of Vancouver with Fiji Airways as well, which I'm super excited about, being my home base. I know we the day they announced it, we booked that flight, and I'm always looking every week to see when the seat sale comes up, because if there's one place that I will happily always go back, it's Fiji. And with Fiji Airways too, They're all like quite brand new planes. They revamped their whole airline about 7-8 years ago, and they've done it in their liveries all done in like Fijian traditional stylings, and I think it's quite a cool airline. Actually, I would recommend. I mean, there's a number of other airlines that fly into the islands as well, but I would go with Fiji if you're going there.
Yeah, totally agree. I flew the first time I went to Fiji years ago. That airline was branded. I think it was branded Pacific Airlines or something like that. Something very general.
That's right. It used to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and since then, with the rebranding and the redesign, and like you said, they've updated their fleet and they've updated the livery, the logo and everything, and they have a really nice business class, and I think it's less expensive, more affordable than business class that you might fly with another airline. And the fact that it's direct out of Vancouver, that's a great flight. I mean, I've always had to fly through LA, which is always an interesting experience, but LAX being a big busy airport, so YVR would be a great connection there. Yeah.
Sounds great. Well, thank you, Tim. I know you were still on the last few times we spoke. You've been on a cruise ship around the. Is it where exactly are you, and where are you going?
So yeah, yes, I am. So this voyage, beautiful cruise ship. I'm going to give another shout out to the Seabourn Venture. It is Seabourn is a luxury cruise line, and this is their premier expedition ship. So it is a ship that is equipped for ice and snow, and has zodiacs, and it primarily sails to the polar regions. In this case, the ship is transiting between the Arctic and the Antarctic, and so I am on board for a few weeks. From I boarded the ship in Barbados, and we did a few Caribbean islands, including some islands off the coast of French Guiana, which was very interesting, a French overseas territory in South America. And then spent 2 weeks on the Amazon River, uh, visiting local communities and seeing all the wildlife, on this mighty river. And now this is the very final leg of the trip, and I'm very sad that it is. And we are traveling down the coast of Brazil, uh, and on the Atlantic coast. So it's been nothing but water. This is the third day at sea that we haven't seen anything but water. Tomorrow we get off for a day trip. All of the guests in Natal, in a city in the northeastern part of the country, and I'm going to drive a dune buggy tomorrow. That's the plan for tomorrow. So, anyway, I'm on the beautiful Seabourn Venture, sailing down the coast of Brazil on the Atlantic Ocean.
Very cool. Well, I look forward to hearing all about dune buggying on a future episode.
Absolutely, can't wait to tell you about it. Always, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much, David.
Thanks, Tim.
All my bags are packed, I'm ready to go. Standing here outside your door, I hate to wake you up to say goodbye. But the dawn is breaking, it's early morn, the taxi's waiting, he's